we are trying to model the very behaviors of what's required to let go of the old ways, of the playbooks that don't work anymore. And I'm sorry, we have a lot of fractionals with playbooks, and they've worked up to a point, but they're not going to work moving forward.
Hey, it's Nikki, Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science, and I'm with ladies today that I call friend. Mindy Honcoop and Marnie Robbins are not just building another HR community, they're building a movement rooted in a really deeper question. How do we actually want to live and work? Very much this holistic way of being. And while they are simultaneously running their own solopreneur businesses with, I think, very shared and aligned missions, these two visionary leaders came together to launch AltHR, a human-centered community and framework designed for modern HR professionals who know the old way is no longer enough. In this conversation, we unpack the origin story behind AltHR, the belief system driving it, the realities of bootstrapping something meaningful from the ground up, and why now may be and is the most important moment yet for HR leaders to evolve, connect, and co-create something better. So I am so excited to have my friends here today. We are going to tag team. It's fun when we have three on the podcast, and particularly this group. Mindy and Marnie, take us back to the moment that this dream, this vision began.
It really went back to, I have been in my head and I couldn't put my finger on it, Nikki. I was having a lot of conversations in my brain, and some of the best conversations were unlocking when I was coming together with some other HR peers here in Austin. We call it Second Flight. We try to meet once a month. It usually ends up once a quarter. Two other HR practitioners internally, and we were like a cohort. And there was something beautiful about those conversations and how we work together. And what I took away from that, I thought, this is what others need. And it was coming up so often in my one-on-one conversations as I was supporting HR leaders as an agile HR. Marnie and I came together, and all these reflections, all these observations I was having, Marnie was having something similar. And so it was through those conversations where it felt like we kind of got it, but it was just like slightly outside of our existence to be able to speak words into it. And so that's really where catalytic culture first was born, and started really as an experimental cohort of bringing HR practitioners and small, medium businesses together. I'll let Marnie take it from there.
Oh, nice handoff. We wanted to combine forces, right? We had been in each other's ecosystem and floating around, our virtual and in-person and network together. And so this first cohort with Catalytic Culture, something really cool happened, and that was it completely shifted from the moment that we started this 3-month cohort to the end, and we got some really great feedback, and we had thrown all the data at them to begin with. We were like, okay, here's the first session, here's everything, here's the download on what we know about human-centered design. And Mindy knows about human-centered design, and what Marnie knows about people operations and culture, and they were like, that's great, but whoa, you need to slow down. And so really the beauty of what came through that cohort was just the work that we put in over the next 3 months and each other. They really grabbed onto each other. So fast forward to this last fall and teaming up with People Forward Network. And that was our ability to say, hey, let's just start having the conversations, right? Let's just start talking about the future of the HR function is shifting so much, and right now, particularly in human resources and people and culture work. And so let's just start having the conversation and what that looks like. So we have been in this experiment and transition over the last few months. And, with the podcast, the shift, it's really just about look, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go, but we know that we want the profession to succeed, and we know we want to make HR professionals better for it. And so let's talk about what that looks like. So here we are.
Wow. And I have to say, we're all trying to figure out life as a whole, like holistically, right? That we're on this show talking about leadership in the workplace. And I often talk about our whole life. And my husband and I do this planning called the life wheel. And you talk about your finances and your marriage and your kids and your family and your health and your, spirituality and all this holistic way of being. And we're on an individual journey for our lives and for our own personal missions, right? But when we come together and we lock arms and we work with brilliant people, particularly entrepreneurs, it makes me think of this book called Scaling Up. If you're familiar with is it called the Gazelles? The Gazelles group, they're like peer groups. But here's with the dedication. I read it like on the days I need inspiration. Ooh, to the leaders who scale up companies and their families and teams that support them, you are the engines of our economies and the source of our freedom. And we're coming off of right now Indy 500. I live in Indianapolis, it's the greatest spectacle in racing, huge into sports. And you watch every time that a driver takes the wheel, they're taking the hugest risk, and all of the people that are behind them, right? And the word that I just bring so much into my business and my life, my husband, my family is collaboration, right? And what's better than taking the risk to be an entrepreneur, say, I'm going to do it differently, and do it with your best friend. So talk to us just a little bit about what that's like for the two of you. Do you ever just stop and pause and you're like, I'm living the dream?
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to also, in how we do it differently, like really model like what can different look like. And so when we started from just my work, anyways, working with founders that were friends or, hearing stories of founder friends, they they just started working together, right? Because often they had worked together at a previous company and they just started working. They just started jumping in. They didn't take the time to kind of understand what's the why, and also understand, okay, this is a new working relationship, and like how do we map this out and set our expectations, and what is kind of our first principles in like working together. And that's something that was really important. And I mentioned that if I ever started a partnership, I want to do it differently. I'll never forget one night I was at a restaurant sitting at a bar, and with a founder that it was just finishing breaking up, divorcing, they said, with their founder friend, and how devastating it was because it was like a lifelong friend, and how they were no longer friends. And he was like, at what point do you bring someone like you into a business? And I said, well, could you imagine if the moment you and your partner decided to work together and you had this conversation that we're having, and you had brought someone in to think through, when we start to put two people together and start to try and do work together, how might that look like, and facilitate that strategic conversation? He was like, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. And so I took that always away as something, if I do this, this is where it starts. And the friendship and the person and the human comes first. And always holding an open head and remaining curious. And if the friendship comes first, I think everything realigns. And I think, life is unexpected. Like, I love the wheel that you're talking about, Nikki, because there's been moments for Marnie and I where we've like had to have some really trusted conversations. That wheel of life for me is not feeling great. And, like, what are you sensing right now? There is some moments with decisions that we really had to take a step back and say, is this still feel true to what we started out with? Like, are we still heading in the right direction? And always rethinking and being open to think about, are we just going down this path because it is just felt right? Or is this the right thing to do? Is this really serving the HR person that we came together, the HR function that we came together? And always like making sure that we're not just heading down and getting into the weeds like our HR people do, because it's so easy. You get into the weeds and we forget to come up holistically. And so when those moments happen, we have to take a step back and be reflective and think, What are we missing here? Is there a better way? Is there something that we need to be curious about right now? And it feels like this may be a no, but we're not quite sure what those next steps are going to be. And really, stepping through that, not trying to come up with a solution right away, but really asking what if, and informing, okay, how does that then go back to the wheel and the friendship and the guiding principles?
Remember, Marnie, when we did the reimagine session? That's how we kicked things off, was we spent quite a few hours together and then asynchronously. Asynchronous has been a very big part of my life recently, to be able to live more holistically, where it's as simple as starting a Google Doc and having the why, the who, the how, the what, the where, the when, and really looking at goals and looking at, let's shoot for the stars, but what if the stars don't happen? Then what? And we created this document with, like, who's our who? What are we building this for? What are we trying to solve? What's not working? What do we want to work? What's the dream? And what do you remember, Marnie, about that time and just having that document as the North Star?
That conversation was really, I hate to say forcing function, but a bit of a forcing function of the why and what we were attempting to accomplish. And so for us, you had mentioned the who. I think that was the biggest clarity piece that we got from that conversation, and something that we carry today is the who. It's the HR professionals, predominantly 50 to 500, small to medium sized business, doing it alone. Da, da, da. So like we really, that persona leapt out of the page for us at that time. So everything that we do, even when we get back to first principles of, as Mindy mentioned, there's sometimes where it's like, okay, what is this in service of? Well, it's the who, right? And so that's for us. And you've even seen our vocabulary shift over time in the way that we're talking. Mindy introduced the future of the function. Yeah, and to me, that's like, yes, this is right. This feels good because the who is there, and that's what you serve to make their situation better. And we're in it together. We don't have all the answers, but what we do know is what we're doing is in service of that. And so I think that that's the biggest thing that we took away from that reimagine session that's really stuck.
Yeah. Not having all the answers and asking for help is so important. So, as we are kicking off this podcast, coming right off of Memorial Day, I'm like, kind of flying in on two wheels. Let's get started, to kick things off, and really excited about this. And I have my production manager like on speed dial, right? Like, sometimes things just, there's so many tech things here and everything's doing a software update every time you hop on. And we talk about building community. We're building it on an enterprise version of Circle. So circle.so. And so there's a whole team behind, and we need a full-time person just to work with Circle, let alone Google or, whatever tech platform. And we need that collaboration, that, you've got the mission, we know who we want to serve, collaborating with, the partnerships of who are at the core. And then it's about belief, trust, surrender, and let's go. And so, what is the AltHR Hive? Talk about AltHR Hive, that kind of as the springboard that then launches into all of these community offerings. Just want to mention out there, community building is not easy. It's a lot. And you're doing such a good job of just continuing to go. Like in podcasting, the average podcaster doesn't get to episode 9. There's millions of podcasts out there. Okay. Look at those numbers all the time. And they don't get past episode 9 because it's so many steps. Project management is like key. We use Monday.com. It's like, talk about asynchronous. When you look at what you're doing from the why, alt HR Hive, and then all of the other, we call them spaces. Those are the different places that you can meet in the community, but kind of give us that full picture.
I think that is such an interesting question, because the community part has been a surprise for us. Like, you're right, community is really hard and we're still figuring it out, right? And so I think we started community first, and really about, okay, what are the conversations, and trying to take what we did with catalytic culture and take aspects of what we learned from that and do it in the community. Well, when we did that, we thought, oh, people are going to want to do these cohorts and they're going to want to go behind a paid wall. And when we surveyed people, they're like, no, we just want to hang out here and just lurk. We called them loving lurkers. And okay, we coined that phrase for someone that we had spoken to. That's a word nerd. Absolutely love her. But she's like, you have loving lurkers. I was like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what we have. And she's like, why not embrace that? And so what does that mean to have loving lurkers and how you add value to them? Because I think the other thing that came out of that conversation was, so you want to add another team meeting when the very thing they say is there are too many meetings. And I was like, okay.
Let's go asynchronous,
I
right? Like, how do
know.
we do this?
I know, right? Exactly. And so I think the community part, as we've come together, we've slowly, seen people following us in different spaces. Some of them are in the community, some of them are not. And we've slowly seen the community grow like organically over time, which is awesome. I don't think we have it figured out yet. I think it's still something that's a huge question mark for me. But, the one thing I do that I'm very excited and proud of is the co-authored ebook workbook that we have. Is that what we would call it? Field guide. Called The Signal. And I just feel like I don't have my finger on it, Nikki. I don't. And I wish I could answer your question more articulate, but I think that's the biggest thing Marnie and I have had is that you think you have it figured out and then something shifts. And then you're like, okay, because we're going back to the why and the who, then what is this for them? And it becomes ever more important around the future of the function. I'm so glad you mentioned that because we see more and more articles coming out about how HR is replaceable and that they're getting rid of HR, right? We saw that a couple of times in articles just recently again, and not in a loving way either. I would say in a way that really, unfortunately, put a dark spot on the HR function. And it was very frustrating to read those things. And there's definitely a very complex and a whole nother conversation around that. But I think that the future of HR is ever more important and what it looks like and focusing in on the people of how work is done is necessary to thrive for economy and communities and society.
Totally. It's called like I have words in my office that help me stay, locked in, if you will. And my mom got me this ceramic word that says evolve. So just, it is constantly and of every day is an evolution. We learn today, something and we get the survey back and it's like, how did I miss that light bulb moment? Right. And so if you were to summarize as of today, what is alt HR in one sentence ish? And what is the problem it's solving or the dream it's achieving?
Mindy, I'd like you to answer this too, but for me, it's mindset shift. Because the way Signal was born is I was like, okay, I've seen Mindy coach on human-centered design. I've seen how we've modified it, and talking to individuals and to change and to evolve, as you put it, you have to have a malleable mind. And that mind has to be able to shift with the outside ecosystem that's around it. And that's where alt HR is helping people keep an open mind, shifting their perspective, and evolving with where we are today.
Well, and you think about, I put out a social media post yesterday just on Facebook for, some friends and family. I don't do a ton on there for business stuff, but put something out, about having a little sappy moment. I was drinking if you're familiar, Signetti, okay? Indiana Hoosiers, go Hoosiers. IU grad over here, so it's pretty exciting to live in Indianapolis. I'm drinking Signetti's beer. I'm, sitting out there at the fire pit eating some chili, what do you call them? Chili cheese Fritos, just like totally having a cheat day. And I'm like thinking about my grandfather who served our country. And I think about all the people that are serving the country. And every day when I tie my shoes, I strap my boots on. In Man's Search for Meaning, this book, the main, you have to get it. It's not very long. I've gotten it for people for gifts. I would totally buy it for you guys. Send me your address. The core of all of it is if you had nothing. He was in a concentration camp. and had nothing and lived through it, lived through Auschwitz. And the only thing that got him through was his mind. And every day through gratitude and through perception shift, the mindset, because you think you can't, you think you can or you think you can't, right? And that's the game of life. You think you can or you think you can't. And do you know how many people I talk to, friends and family every day, that are wallowing in I can't? And it's like you get up, you strap on your boots, and you phone a friend for help or sometimes a prayer, right? And that's community. We have to also be together. So I want you to talk about, there's in real life or live things that you do. We've mentioned some of this. Talk about how you see the ability to connect virtually. I want to come to Austin one day. We can all meet in Austin because I've been there before and I love it. So we could all meet up, but we've only met through a screen, and I call you a friend. How do we mix that for community and do it well?
I think that's so important because I think it starts with a mindset shift. And the talk that Marnie and I did with Disrupt HR, I think is so poignant because I think it helps people realize how we ourselves often keep ourselves from having a mindset shift. Like the limiting voices within our head that get us stuck in I can't and keep us from exploring what is possible today. What can I do? And what is that one thing? If it's only just one thing that I feel called or able to do today, what is that? In order to connect with others, because in our science, we're not able to connect with others more than we're connected with selves. And more, what I see, especially within the HR function, is because of the isolating nature, is a lot of the individuals that we serve or who are in a place of complete isolation and of complete disconnection with themselves. And the ability to connect with others and ask for help is really hard. And it feels to them like this mountain that they can never climb and they're never going to get out of it. I've heard some incredible stories, make me cry of, when they do have that mindset shift and they see then the others around them that they aren't alone and how to start asking for help and how to start connect and then the possibility because that then builds possibility and we realize that there's a lot more we can do together than alone. And while we also need to remember, okay, what is within our capacity today? And yes, I can, but how are we taking people along with us and not extending beyond our capacity? Because I think for me, I often will go beyond and then I have to and then I say, oh my goodness, I went outside of my limits. But then I have the community to come back to and be able to help really reflect on, hey, I'm seeing these things. You know, what belief did I have that might not be true anymore because we're taking in new data and things have maybe pivoted or changed. But community can help us through all of that. Community can really test our beliefs and what is true and what isn't true and what is possible when we are together, when we let people know of the questions that are in our head and we're getting stuck and we're staying up at night wondering, "Oh my goodness, what can I do?" Well, thing is you can't do it. You weren't meant to do it. We're meant to rely on others. And we're meant to ask for help. We're meant to say that prayer. We're meant to realize maybe there is a different way and you just don't see it yet, but you've got to talk with other people to figure out what that is. And so I think when I love that is, and we do need each other. Like our community, our neighborhood here, we have amazing neighbors, and I love that they sit in the front of their yard and they ask how you're doing and how can we help each other because there's things that are going right on next door that just one small little act that you can do that takes no time makes a huge difference for them, and that's the power of coming together.
So good. I absolutely love it. And before we transition over to the signal framework, because I want to talk about that because it's this core tool, right? It's this core framework that this serves as a very powerful tool. Like for us at People Forward Network, we have the podcast growth playbook. It's our main tool, right? So I want to talk about the signal framework. Before we do that, I just want to make sure that people that are listening right now, that are like, oh, you're speaking to my soul. Like, I need this. I need this. What can they expect? Like, you can join the Hive for free, right? So there's a lot of free offering, and maybe we just talk about that for right now because it's so rich, right? What the free offering is, what can they expect if we can tell that succinctly, just to visualize? I could visualize myself in there. What am I doing?
Yeah. I mean, in there's gonna be other like-minded people because it's organic growth. There's people who are really passionate often about what Marnie and I are speaking about. They really wanna learn more. They're curious. They've probably are in the midst of wanting a mindset shift. They may not have had it yet, but there's something that has really attracted them to the honey, and they want to know more. They sense there's a different way to do this, and they want that. And then once they're in the hive, it's interesting because there's going to be a lot of the stuff that Marnie and I are dropping in there is a mix of things that were the conversations we're having on the shift, the nuggets of wisdom that we're hearing from the stories that are highlighted on the shift. They're also hearing about the things that Marnie and I are uniquely doing through Vibe People Studio and through Agile and HR, which so beautifully interconnect with alt HR, I think in a way that I don't even realize yet. And being able to do that work somehow is like woven into alt HR. But so in the community and when we come together in person, there's a in-person events, people talk and share. They're learning about, what is in real life for someone, what they're walking and stepping through. I wish we had more dialogue. We don't. We don't. What's in there as well as old podcasts and brain share of Marnie and I that we put out there for free. A couple of pre-signal frameworks that are free. And then there was a call to a greater leadership cohort that no one said yes to. So, yeah, that's all in there. The real, like, I want to be real about it, right? It's a place of, I think right now it feels like a Patreon of a podcast.
What it really is it's a place to gain inspiration. Right now, the loving lurkers, I'm involved in there. A lot of times I'm a loving lurker. I do comment regularly and like things, and I do enjoy lovingly lurking, but a lot of it for me is inspiration. This is inspiration. And I think, however you participate, whatever level, loving lurker, the like button, conversation starter, the hey, you want to host something with us, whatever, right? And just reaching out, you can do a direct DM. So just like a private message, and just having more of that, because we all need, I'm building community too. And I'm like, every once in a while, it's like so nice to get a DM where it's like, wow, this is really cool. I'm like, thank you. What do you like about it? Like, this is cool. And I never met this person, but just inspired. So I want you to talk about, I think, Marnie, I'm going to hand it over to you. By the way, Mindy and Marnie are best friends, but both are solopreneurs. So, always have to have a network around them. As a solopreneur, you got to have a network around you of people that support you as contractors or friends or people you're trading with or whatever you're doing. Then as a community, it's like, okay, community first. So we're really about engaging with other people, having these tools that are like gold, like it's gold. The signal framework, I think, is one of the most powerful things that someone can gain access to. Talk about the signal framework, why it matters right now. Human-centered design is the core, and all of the things.
Yeah, so with this signal, it was really interesting how it was kind of born because we kept bringing up HCD, and it can be a lot, especially when we're dealing with priorities that are shifting all the time, and external environments are shifting all the time, and AI is shifting all the time. And so what we really wanted to do is like, hey, we've been approaching this over the years as recovering chief people officers and head of people in a way that has we've seen success with. And so Mindy and I were having a conversation in one of our weekly meetings. I was like, Let's name this. Like, what is it? Let's actually go through our version of what this is and what we've seen be successful." And so that's where Signal was born. And Signal is just the name to keep you through the steps. And what we're really tickled about too is that shifts too. Signal, it may be Singal at one point, just depending on what you're going through. But what it is almost a perpetual learning and perpetual mindset. So this framework helps just as you read a book to learn a new skill, or like coaching. You take coaching classes and all of a sudden I know these frameworks. Well, I don't use that framework verbatim every coaching call that I have. But guess what? I've learned that it's ingrained in my mindset. So when I approach a business problem, I'm automatically going into the signal framework, which is really me understanding how to get into the root cause analysis. So, to what end are we trying to solve your business problem? Not just an HR people problem, but your business problem. How do we get to the core of that business problem? Get really curious, bring in our stakeholders and our team members, form an absolute hypothesis, throw something out there in a very manageable, digestible way, nothing too big, behemoth, no big 1 year strategy sessions. And then guess what? We repeat it, right? We test it out, we learn, we iterate, and then we repeat again. So that's what the signal framework is just learning a new mindset slash skill set that we can take into whatever role we have, wherever that role is. Maybe it's being employed by yourself, talking to you fractional people pros. And that's what the signal framework is. And so that's what we've really started to hang our hat on because gosh, it's got legs and it really does. It gets into your soul.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were able to put it live at Running Remote and had a workshop where we got to walk through it in person with a small group of people. And one of my friends kind of like videoed some of that like conversation. And I think the power of what was unique was we learned real time that it doesn't have to be signal, that it was what was it, signal? We did, I didn't even walk through it because I was making up a scenario. But then the audience started like talking through what they were working on. And as they were giving me feedback about what was resonating with them, they just started naturally talking through it. And it created this like conversation of possibility because it goes from a place of I'm having all this friction, I have this problem. And it naturally, as you think through it, becomes a possibility and you're restating it in a way that invites people into co-create. And that is what has like so surprisingly stood out to me because I was not expecting this organic conversation of solutioning together to happen. And I've been really marinating on why did that happen? But it's because it was about possibility and we were actually asking questions and the coaching mindset that Marnie was saying. And so I think that is the beauty of all of this, that of that being born and literally can help anybody with what they're like kind of stepping through. And with fractional leaders and as we're new ways of working, we have this podcast that's going to go live this week that we're all like how we get work done is different. Like how we even as fractionals get work done. We should be doing more of this, Nikki. We should be like doing more co-collaboration because there's some things that just can't get done when it's in our head alone. When you're rethinking how what we're doing is literally happening. Like we can't do that alone. It has to be in community. And so that is where we are trying to model the very behaviors of what's required to let go of the old ways of the playbooks that don't work anymore. And I'm sorry, we have a lot of fractionals with playbooks and they've worked up to a point, but they're not going to work moving forward. How we've built community up till now also is probably going to look different. And so that's why we have to continually be looking into possibility. How do we rethink this? What is serving the mission and the who with the capacity we have with each other, but then put together? And as we come across those blockers and what feels like a blocker, how does this get just another reflection point of like maybe this is just another broken piece of the old ways of working that we need to take a look at all the different corners and be able to say, you're not stopping me. And I'm going to think through this and I'm going to ask for help. It just is going to look different. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I will remain and I refuse to go into scarcity and I will remain in that possibility.
Yes. Yes. I'm like, can someone just give her the microphone? Keep the microphone. Let's go. This has gone so fast. I knew it was going to. I was like, this is going to be so fun. How are we possibly going to get it into one episode? But I think we're doing a good job. So over and above having access to the signal framework, having access to Hive and so many things from the Disrupt HR, that's a partnership with you that you're hosting, to all of these gatherings, or maybe sitting and having a beer at the bar, like whatever that might be for the therapy session that sometimes you need for that, right? We need the mix. And we also need to figure out how to be asynchronous, and we're constantly evolving, but there are workshops, peer groups, you two are taking the stage and speaking. There's so many different things to do, and we can't get into all of that right now. Might have another episode coming soon, but making sure to jump in. Just jump in. Just jump in. Look, there's this speaker used to say, you know what, as an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm on the high dive and I just know there's water in the pool, so I'll jump. The water in the pool are the people, right? And so we just jump in and see how maybe you can only log in once a week. Just put the reminder on a little 30-minute block. Or maybe you just keep your tab up and you log in and out, or put a little sticky note. I do sticky notes. Anybody else write handwritten? And just remind yourself of what it is to do, because all of us at the end of the day, we want ROI in our businesses, financial, meaningful, all the things. And this is really a holistic community for HR professionals, people leaders, lots of people in the tech community and beyond. And we've got momentum. And so just with the bootstrapping reality that we're in right now, we are building strategic partnerships with the best solution providers. Never is it going to be like, here's this next webinar and we're going to do a pitch deck. Nope. It's going to be collaborative, learning, engaged, the chat. Where are you at in the world today? And what's going on? And understanding what matters to you and really engaging our partners in that way. That is our next big goal, is to bring in our 3 core launch partners. And then in collective, we've got those companies with many different sales and team members and all that. And they have resources they can bring to the table. And it's all about supporting a dream. So if you are someone listening and you're a dreamer, maybe you want to be a dreamer. Maybe you hear this dream and it's inspired you. Jump in. We'll have the link to join the Hive community. Take a listen to The Shift. It is a new podcast on the People Forward Network. You can find that podcast on Apple and Spotify and the People Forward Network. And we will see you all on the next episode of God Plus Science. And maybe it'll be just with Mindy, maybe with Marnie, maybe, I don't know, whatever guest it will be. But I will tell you, we will always be dreaming, collaborating, evolving, and go read this book, Scaling Up.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.